योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिमानतोऽस्मि। लये सम्बोधयेच्चित्तं विक्षिप्तं शमयेत् पुनः सकाशायं विजानीयात् समप्राप्तं न चालयेत्. Om. So we have just studied the five different kinds of the vrittis, and we also said each one of them gives rise to either klishta or aklishta experiences. So we were also last week we were studying the 11th sutra, which is a fairly important sutra, Anubhuta Vishaya Asampramoshaha Smritihi. So we are trying to understand what is this memory about. We were now just talking about memory of Usha and things like that. But anyway, what is this memory? What is its influence on our chitta vritti? So whenever Anubhuta Vishaya, in the past, it could be in this life or it could be even in the past lives. So whatever Vishaya is either it can be some other objects, it can be, very simple thing is starting from food, for example. We have our own preferences for food, the spice level, the kind of food we eat. In fact, you go on a vacation, let us say you go on a cruise. In a cruise, you get always, not these days, but you would probably get only a non-Indian food, and then you will be waiting to come back home and just have that rasam and rice. And that would be equal to a heavenly experience. So that all that is because someday, somewhere, somehow, we have experienced, and that experience is we never let go. Asampramoshaha means when we don't let go, then it becomes a smriti. So you can see what smriti does is every unit of experience, it starts weaving a web around us. And then we get trapped in that web, which our mind creates just like a silkworm does. And then we hide inside that. So that is why all our memories, we may not express our experience of the memories, we may not express it either physically or verbally, but then inside it is actually working. All these memory impressions. So therefore, of all the chitta vrittis that we looked about, that is pramana, viparyaya, vikalpa, nidra, smritayaha, the question is, which is the most powerful of all these? The most dominating of all these things? That disturb our mind either by giving us a sense of pleasure or a sense of unhappiness, klishta, aklishta. The most powerful of all is memory, is smriti. And this smriti is so powerful because throughout our existence, no thought is ever lost. So if we say that a person has got good memory, it means he is able to bring that memory out into the open. If we say a person does not have a very good memory, it is just that somehow his skill of bringing that memory is not there or he is not exercising it. That is all. Every single thought we have thought, every single experience we have had, all of them are preserved. Unlimited storage in our chitta. So all of these things are there, and then These, how are they preserved? They are all preserved as subliminal impressions. Subliminal impressions in Yoga Shastra term is called samskara. So what is this samskara? Samskara is a subliminal impressions of every single thought, every single experience of not only this life but also of our past lives. So what do these do? All of these things are dormant. So in the memory there will be a trace as vasana, and it is also preserved as an impression, and it is called samskara. And these samskaras and vasanas are all the time there. Now the Yoga Shastra looks at it and says, when does it come out? Whenever there is an external cause, even remotely connected, however remotely connected to the immediate experience, it arouses a recollection. An external cause arouses a recollection. And this recollection can be in form, or it can be in the process with which you knew about that in the first instance. So two concepts, form and method of knowing. Method of knowing at the first time, before a vasana and samskara was etched into the memory. And therefore, as soon as the right conditions arise, they come out. Simple example, which is in all of our experiences. Let us say you are meeting a friend or a relative whom you have not seen for decades. Let's say you suddenly get to know your classmate who was probably with you 25, 30 years ago and never met ever since, which means that a lot of change would have happened even in his physical form for 20, 25 years. In spite of that, as soon as you even think of that person, let us not even say you are meeting, you think of that person, what's going on in your mind? The form of the person comes to the forefront. And whatever impressions you had about that person during the period of your relationship, that also comes to the forefront. So both form as well as the way of knowing, both of them can come to the forefront. And they can actually create klishta and aklishta vrittis. So that is why smriti becomes such a powerful, most powerful of all the vrittis is our memory. Because every other pramana, vikalpa are not as deep-seated as the smriti, which is leaving a samskara, the latent impression that is there in the chitta. And these act like the ropes that actually bind and envelop the manas. So therefore, Patanjali has to move on by identifying the cause for the chitta vrittis, not only giving the enumeration of how the chitta vrittis take place, but also for the cause for the chitta vrittis. And now he talks about untangling it. So therefore, we started with the concept of sankalpa in our last class. So let us first of all resolve, have a sankalpa that we are going to untangle ourselves from the dominance of all these chitta vrittis. And without sankalpa, nothing can be had. Nothing can be achieved. No yoga is possible. No puja is possible. No dhyana is possible without doing sankalpa. That's why we see that even in our religious practice, sankalpa is the first thing that happens. So sankalpa is the process, as I was mentioning last week, we have to see what is the gap between the 11th sutra and the 12th sutra, where he talks about abhyasa and vairagya. What was it that Patanjali might have been teaching to his students? First thing he would have said is, make up your mind before you do anything. So therefore the sankalpa has to be of what quality? It has to be a sustainable sankalpa. This is one of the reasons why even religiously, when we start the puja, till the visarjana of the puja, we don't get distracted. We should not get distracted, because otherwise sankalpa is shaken. So the nirodha is the first project, and the sankalpa for the nirodha, chittavritti nirodha, which will ensure establishing in the drashta, first and foremost is, let us do a sankalpa. So from sankalpa, we have to achieve nirodha. Why did Patanjali say nirodha and did not say, let us do the sankalpa to remove the samskaras altogether? Let's erase the samskaras altogether. Now that is a very ambitious project bound to fail. So he is saying, take one step at a time. Too much of ambition of saying, I'm going to completely erase all the samskaras, even before you start the abhyasa, such a sankalpa is going to make you only frustrated. And therefore, let us talk about removing the samskaras at a later date, after you have gone through many other disciplines that Patanjali Maharishi is going to give. In the meanwhile, the first sankalpa is, I want to suppress my chittavritti. So you can say, on this day, Shubhe Shobhane Muhurte Adya Brahmana, and then you recite the Panchanga, and on this Panchanga you say, I want to suppress my chittavrittis. So first let us suppress it before removing them. This samyama, we are going to talk about samyama later. So therefore, we must strategize. The strategy is, first of all, sankalpa to do chittavritti nirodha. So we have to raise a few questions. So what is this deha and manas? Several definitions have been given, but at the time of making the sankalpa, once again we have to come back and ask the same question: what are our deha and manas? The answer from Yoga Shastra comes, they are actually the physical and the mental dimensions of Prakriti. So there is nothing distinct from Prakriti and my deha and my mind. So first concept before we try to say nirodha, chittavritti nirodha is, chittavritti, which is part of my manas, is actually a part of Prakriti. It is not part of the drashta, the seer, Purusha. Therefore sankalpa also entails an understanding of what sankalpa we are taking. So the sankalpa is first and foremost to identify that deha and manas actually belong to Prakriti. Then secondly, I want to do nirodha. Nirodha upon what? Chitta vritti. Where is this vritti? It is in chitta. Chitta is part of Prakriti. Deha is part of Prakriti. Which part of it? Should I control Deha or should I control the Chitta? Is the next question. Yoga Shastra says the aspect to focus upon Nirodha, try on the more difficult one. To control the body is easier than controlling the mind. Therefore, take the sankalpa to control the more difficult part, because this antahkarana is consisting of manas, which is emotions and thought, buddhi, the intellect, intelligence, and the ahankara, the sense of ego. This sukshma or the subtle aspects of the prakriti, which is individualized for me because of the trigunas. Let me take a sankalpa to control this. Now, the Yoga Shastra says, as soon as we get some control on the sukshma part of our personality, which is the antahkarana, automatically and with great ease, sthula aspects are controlled. Is that not so? Once we make up our mind, I am going to study Yoga Shastra. Let us see even more. Let us say I want to make a lot of money. I want to become immensely rich. So I make a sankalpa. As soon as I make a sankalpa of I want to become immensely rich. Will I become rich if I just use my body and roam about everywhere? Is it possible? Instead of that, now I'm going to do the sankalpa. I'm going to control my mind. Whatever I speak, whatever I do, whatever interactions I have with everyone, I am going to do only with one single focus. How can I make money? So when that is there, how does it translate? Imagine a salesman, used car salesman. A used car salesman is trained to take all kinds of abuse by the customer, isn't it? Never gets perturbed. Never speaks back in anger or in irritation. Keep smiling, keep smiling, keep smiling. So what's the training that is given to them? The training is nothing is personal. If you want to make money, you got to stomach all these things. And he stomachs, smiles, and sells you the lemon, and he will make money. Because he has practiced this Chitta Vritti Nirodha, which translated it into physical control also, isn't it? From the emotional control to physical control. So, this is a very important point to note. Every single physical and mental act leaves behind subliminal impressions, vasana, and mental traces called samskara. Both of these things will be there. And they come up at the appropriate time, even if you have forgotten. So I want to give you an episode from Abhijnana Shakuntala. In Abhijnana Shakuntala Nataka, as you know, some of us have studied that together, and you also know the story, where Dushyanta has forgotten that he got married to Shakuntala. So the Shakuntala is sent by Kanva Maharshi, and she is on the way to come to the capital of Dushyanta. So we enter into the fifth act of Abhijnana Shakuntala. So any of you who have Shakuntala text, please go to fifth act and look at this conversation that I am going to talk about. Dushyanta has forgotten Shakuntala. In the meantime, on that morning, when the fifth Anka starts, Dushyanta and his court jester, it's called Vidushaka, and his name is actually given as Madhavya in the drama. Madhavya and Dushyanta will be walking around in the palace, and they come upon the outside of the music hall, the palace music hall. From inside the palace music hall, a very melodious voice of a girl who was practicing, of a woman rather, who was practicing music comes across. And then she is singing a very beautiful song. And the translation of song is like this. She is addressing a honeybee. Oh, honeybee, you are all the time looking for honey. And then, just yesterday, you were actually sucking the honey of a mango blossom. And now you have forgotten and you have settled on a lotus flower. So this was the song that she was singing. And her name was Hamsapadika. Dushyanta has forgotten. The Vidushaka Madhavya says, Raja, she is one of your lovers. You have had quite an affair with her. How can you forget somebody with whom you had such intimate relationship? That's why we say that kings are Raja Bahuvallabha. Raja Bahuvallabha means a king will have lots of women. How can he remember, poor fellow? And here, Hamsapadika has been one of his lovers and he has completely forgotten. And Madhavya reminds Dushyanta, the one who is singing there is Hamsapadika. So now let us look at it from the Yoga Shastra perspective. Now what happened to Dushyanta? As soon as the situation arose, he has not yet seen Hamsapadika because he is outside of the hall. The form, the face, and all the dalliances he had with Hamsapadika surfaces to his mind. And now he associates that relationship with the song that she is singing. And what was this song? It was the bee who was at one time interested in the mango blossom and now interested in the lotus blossom, which means Dushyanta says, I have an uneasy feeling that she is telling about me. And I have forgotten her. And now he says a beautiful verse which explains how the samskaras and vasanas surface. Ramyani vikshya, that is whenever we see something that has stolen our mind. Madhuramscha nishamya shabdan. It need not necessarily be looking at a form. It can be even just the voice. It can be a recording that you heard about somebody in your life in the past. Paryutsuko bhavati yat sukhitopi jantuhu. Currently, the person is very, very comfortable, happy, no problem whatsoever. Even that happy man, comfortable in the present circumstances, Paryutsuko bhavati. Paryutsuko bhavati means becomes uneasy. An uneasiness sets for him. Why? Tat chetasa smarati nunam abodha purvam. In his mind remembers without remembering why he is recalling it. Many times suddenly some recollections come in our mind. And then you will be wondering, why am I thinking about this person? Why am I thinking about this situation? There's no context at all. Without context, suddenly it comes, and he concludes by saying, Bhavasthirani jananantara sauhrudani. That means the associations of the past remains permanently etched in the mind. This is the power of Smriti. So look at the project here. So Patanjali, that is why he takes this architecture of this Yoga Shastra. First and foremost, he establishes the nature of yoga in Sutra number 1 to 4, and then he takes the analysis of the vrittis from 6 to 11. And now he has to turn towards the Sankalpa. And the Sankalpa we have before us is, let us first suppress. That is all. And let's worry about removing them altogether once we have become experts in suppressing. Therefore, he uses the term Abhyasa Vairagyabhyam Tannirodha. So much concepts Patanjali Maharshi must have taught to introduce the 12th Sutra after the 11th. So he is saying that Abhyasa is repeated practice, Vairagya is dispassion. By applying these two means, you can do Chittavritti Nirodha. So what is the Sankalpa? The Sankalpa is, I am going to take up Abhyasa and Vairagya. Then the question is, what is Abhyasa? The answer comes in Sutra 13, Tatra Sthitau Yatnaha Abhyasaha. Tatra, that is always being in between these two. Abhyasa supporting Vairagya, Vairagya supporting Abhyasa. Between these two, Sthitau. When we are steadfastly there, Yatnaha, and we are practicing, we are there. That trial, that effort is called practice. Tatra sthitau yatnaha abhyasaha. And the practice itself must become perfectly established. So, there is a general sankalpa and there is also intermediate sankalpas. So, you say that I do a resolve to do Satyanarayana Puja, main sankalpa. Then you will say, Adau nirvignena parisamapyartham mahaganade pujan karishye. In intermediate sankalpa, so that all the obstacles are removed, I am going to do the puja for Ganapati. Now, does this secondary or minor sankalpa, does it support the original sankalpa or not? It definitely supports the original sankalpa, because it is not that you started the sankalpa to do Satyanarayana Puja and then you came to Ganapati Puja and then abandoned Satyanarayana Puja and continued with Ganapati Puja. And once Ganapati Puja is over, then you will say, I will do Navagraha Puja, abandon both Ganapati as well as Satyanarayana, and you do Navagraha. That is not the concept here. The concept is Sankalpa, intermediate Sankalpas, subsidiary Sankalpas also have to support the main Sankalpa, so that the purpose of worshipping Satyanarayana is fulfilled completely. And therefore this has to happen, this practice, Satu, that practice must be for Dirgha Kala, for a prolonged length of time, and Nairantarya, without any gaps and uninterrupted, and Satkara done with full reverence, Asevitaha, when done with diligently, it becomes Tridabhumihi, firmly attains ground. So Sankalpa must be actually unshakably grounded. See, in every one of our religious activities, this concept of Yoga Shastra has been used. You decide to build a house, build a temple. So what is the first thing that happens in this enterprise of building a house or a temple? They dig, isn't it? First they dig. Where do they dig? They actually dig in the place where the main load-bearing pillar should stand. So many of you engineers would know this. And in Vastu Shastra also, we do this as Shankusthapana. This Shankusthapana is where we establish the central Sankalpa and to become Dridhabhumi. So this has to happen for a sustained period of time with full commitment. So therefore, how can this be attained? Slowly but surely, our everyday desires, everyday impulses must be brought back to our original goal. Whatever goal we take. As I said, if you want to make money, na sukham, na nidra. No physical comfort, no sleep. Then only a person can make money. So therefore, we have to say that we have to replace our everyday desires and goals by a loftier goal. Here, in the case of Yoga Shastra, it's a loftier goal. It's not just making money or, having any fun or anything like that, because we tire out, we wear out of that. Yes, throughout our life, I work very hard to make money, and then by the time I want to enjoy that money, either the body is very weak and old, or I would have died. Nashtaha, brashtaha. Instead of that, how about replacing our everyday desires and goals by one lofty goal for which we will keep investing our time and effort? And that is Abhyasa Vairagya Abhyam Tannirodha. That has to be done Satu Dirgha Kala Nairantarya Satkara Asevito Dridhabhumi. There was a king, of course. And this king had a very good-looking daughter. Beautiful. Because after all, how can a king's daughter be ugly? It has to be only beautiful. This king, this queen of the king, had a old lady. She was a servant, very, very dedicated, most trustworthy. She had a grandson, about 20 years old. And of course, this old lady had lost her own husband, her son and daughter-in-law, and the only person she had was her grandson, in whom she had immense amount of love. She wouldn't deny him anything. So it so happens our 20-year-old hero one day chances upon to see the princess. So immediately he is smitten by her beauty. And he starts wasting away. Doesn't eat, doesn't sleep. He was always chirpy and very joyous in the company of grandma, but she is finding him more and more distant. Grandmother started getting worried. What's going on? And he knew he was the grandson of a menial servant. So he could not express that he has been attracted to the princess. He would be beheaded probably. So he could not talk about it at all. And then the grandmother was getting worried more and more. And then one day she sat him down and said, "No matter what is in your mind, tell me. If there is anything I can do, I will do for you to take away your agony. Then he confesses to grandmother, oh, I am in love with the princess. Now I want you to pause and think, what would you have done? You try to drive sense into him, right? All the logic we use about the impossibility of the situation. Now the question is, does it work? Why doesn't it work? Because the samskara, the vasana, that the trace that the seeing of this girl had left on his chitta vritti is so deep, it cannot be removed. And the grandmother was pretty mature. She said, why should I take this responsibility and destroy my relationship with my grandson? Because suppose she says, you are stupid. Give up this project. It doesn't work. What would a hot 20-year-old son do? He will desert the grandmother, isn't it? Do you think he will talk to grandmother? Then what will be the state of grandmother's mind? Only grandson. So how can I handle this situation? So she thought. Probably she had read a little bit of Yoga Shastra. She said, why not I escalate this to the king? Very close relationship. She goes to the king and he says, I have got a problem. I want you to advise my son. Because when you, as the Raja, advises my grandson, then he might be able to change whatever is in his mind. He didn't say what is in his mind. And Raja is a Raja, and he can read through this very quickly. There is something personal. And there is nothing personal about this lady other than her grandson. All right, tell me what is going on. It doesn't matter. Whatever is the situation, you tell me. Sir, I don't know how to tell you this. He has desired for something that is impossible and for something that he doesn't deserve. So how can I change his mind to understand the impossibility of this situation? Only you can advise him. Okay, lady, what is his problem? Well, he is in love with your daughter. So again, look at the chitta vritti of the king. This family, I led them into my innermost quarters and I trusted them. And this is what he does? Is this how this old lady has brought up this boy? Throw him into the jail. Would have been the instinct of a immature king. But he is not. So he says, don't worry, bring him, I'll tell him. So she brings her grandson next day. She goes home and tells that I told this to the king, and the king was not angry. He's not sending his police to arrest you. He wants to see you tomorrow. That's all she said. Now what was the chitta vritti of the boy? Suddenly he started getting excited that maybe the king has seen something in me. So goes, stands before the mirror and says, oh, I'm young, I'm very handsome, I'm strong, I'm powerful, and I'm known to the king from childhood. So which better son-in-law he can get than me? So his chitta vritti is going into that vikalpa vritti, isn't it? Into the fantasy. So next day, she takes her grandson to the king. And the king says, I heard that you are in love with my daughter. I'm going to give you my daughter in marriage to you. But there's one condition. I will do anything, sir, you say. Because I am so much in love with your daughter. Give me the hardest and the most difficult task. I will do it. So the king says, no. Nothing very, very strenuous. In our palace garden, there is a big, huge tree. And under that tree, I have installed the Murti of the Lord Buddha. And you can see that he is sitting there in such prashanta face, absolutely peace and calm, unperturbed, unshaken by the elements. Don't look at that Murti as a stone one. Think of that Murti as live Buddha sitting there. In good weather, rain, snow, sleet, harsh weather, without moving from his place and without losing the smile and the calm on his face. You sit there, and the day you attain that state, say, come to me, I will give you my daughter in marriage. So he goes there, he sits all day, all night, managing to focus on the Buddha and at the same time contemplating on Buddha's life and teachings. And slowly the modification takes place. There is a saying, Yad bhavam tad bhavati. Whatever we feel, that is what we become. So he wanted to become like Buddha so intensely. And what started off as a project to win the hand of the princess, slowly he started getting the same tejas of the Murti, Buddha Murti, on which he was contemplating. And people started assembling. They were hanging on every word that he was going to talk. And he did. And his tejas, brilliance was so attractive. And the king came when he saw a large crowd assembling to see and listen to this servant's grandson. And when he saw this glow on the face of our hero, the king says, you are the fittest person to marry my daughter. Tell me, when should I arrange for your wedding? And this boy says, when she is no other than myself, when there are no two, who should marry whom? Look at the transformation. Yes, I coveted your daughter, but I never knew that this was possible. You showed me the way by giving a sankalpa, and that sankalpa was driven by kama. So when this sankalpa is taken, in which there is sattva-guna pradhana, then even that sankalpa becomes a Satya Sankalpa. That's another derivation we get. So in the light of Yoga Shastra, what does it mean? So what it means is our chitta is such, it is like a river. Vyasa in his Bhashya says, Chitta Nadi Nama Vahati Kalyanaya Vahati Papaya Cha. Our chitta is like a river which can flow either towards sinful activities or towards sacred activities. So if the king had refused to give his daughter, two things could have happened. Because the Chitta Nadi would have gone towards Papa. Either he would have tried to abduct the girl or he would have committed suicide. But look at the glory of the Guru. The Guru, in the form of the king, gives a lofty project and tying that project to the desire of the disciple, and by the mere giving of that project, the disciple first thinks to attain this particular object, I am doing this penance, and whereas after some time that desire itself falls off and a higher desire comes up. And therefore, to flow, make our Chitta Nadi, to suppress all the samskaras, the sutra is saying, Tatra sthitau yatnaha abhyasaha. Tatra sthitau. Now, if you carefully look at the grammar of this word, the word is sthiti. Now, sthiti means what? Stability. Because if you just look at the dictionary meaning, tatra sthitau yatnaha abhyasaha, if you want to suppress your mind, nirodha, for the sake of nirodha, you establish your mind. That is how when we first studied the Yoga Sutra, I just gave you a superficial meaning. Now we are going deeper into the subject. So here, the word sthiti has to be parsed. What is this sthiti? When the chitta is emptied of rajas and tamas only, sthiti is possible. Sthiti means what? Stability. How can the mind be stable when it is having rajas? Rajoguna can never give stability. And therefore Rajoguna has got to be removed. In Tamoguna, no awareness is possible. And therefore in Tamoguna, no yoga is there. Therefore no sthiti also. Therefore only when in the abhyasa, rajas tamo gunas are emptied and only sattvika vritti remains, then the chitta becomes ekagra or one-pointed. And when it becomes one-pointed and that is unshakable, so where is the word for unshakability? Sthiti. When it becomes unshakable, then that sattva vritti, it's still a vritti. The sattva vritti of the one who is practicing can attain nirodha. So this is the understanding of abhyasa. So we have actually studied a similar parallel in the verse number 53 of chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita. He makes it a little more easier to understand for us. Shruti vipratipannate yada sthasyati nischala samadha vachala buddhihi tada yogam avapsyasi. Krishna is giving an imperfect commentary on this. Shruti vipratipannate, when your mind gets disturbed by what you hear. See, Shruti means not Veda. Here, Shruti has to be understood what you have heard. What you have heard includes what you have seen. All other sense organs. You take as a sample one sense organ, that's all. So Krishna takes as a sample hearing. Because of Shruti Vipratipanna, that is, Vipratipanna means you got disturbed, your mind got disturbed, and therefore your buddhi, what happened? Your buddhi got disturbed. Disturbance means what? It got entangled with rajas and tamas. Then, yada buddhihi sthasyati nischala. Yada, when buddhihi, your mind, sthasyati nischalaha, in an unshakable state stands, tada yogam avapsyasi. Then you will attain yoga. So what did our king do? The king, Shruti Vipratipanna. So here it is Shruti hearing, there it is seeing. So he has seen the princess. Because of seeing the princess, he is disturbed. How to bring this disturbed youth to yoga state? He had to give him an object to focus upon so that the rajas and tamas is removed. So when you say that here is the Buddha Murti, don't think of it as a stone, but think of it as a live Buddha who is impervious of all the conditions around him, and he is sitting there, not running away and escaping rain and shine. Rajas is gone, isn't it? So there was no rajas. And his face is prashanta, showing the chitta, a calm mind in his facial expression, and therefore he is in sattva guna. So the boy was given a role model which is free from rajas and tamas and full of only sattva guna. Then what happened? Over a period of time, abhyasaha tatra sthitau yatnaha abhyasaha. Because of that abhyasa, he actually came to that state of the Buddhahood, and therefore all distinctions disappeared. So what is the energy that is needed for making sure that such a sthiti is possible in Abhyasa Vairagya? First and foremost, what we need is immense amount of indomitable amount of enthusiasm. No matter what challenges are there in our lives, never to lose utsaha. So first condition is there must be an utsaha even in making the sankalpa. So this sankalpa of even doing the puja should not be driven out of fear. Because lot of time people do puja, people run to the places of worship in times of challenges, isn't it? Otherwise, when everything is going well, they never go to the temple, they never go into their puja room, never light a lamp. Only when Sankata Bandaga Venkataramana, as they say in Kannada. When there is Sankata, they will go run to Venkataramana. So therefore, first thing is, there must be an enthusiasm. I must master my mind. I will enthusiastically and energetically put effort. Why? Because it is my mind. It's mine, personal. If I am not having enthusiasm about myself, how can I have enthusiasm about anything or anybody? So therefore, Patanjali Maharshi is saying indirectly, there must be, in addition to resolve, you must also have utsaha. Is that enough? Because again, utsaha is the display of rajas, isn't it? Now, how to convert utsaha from rajas to sattva? By means of pursuit of the yoga in good company and avoiding wrong company. Again, any number of times we have got to come back, say satsanga is so important. So what the king did with this boy is, this suitor utsaha that this boy had converted into the Buddhahood utsaha. How did he achieve that? By means of showing something that is higher. Yasmin drishte paravare. So how to convert ordinary enthusiasm to extraordinary enthusiasm? It is to have a very lofty goal. And that lofty goal has to start with sankalpa, and that sankalpa must be satsankalpa, and that satsankalpa must be done with utsaha, and it must be done either alone or in the company of good people, and at the same time also exercise dispassion. One last word to think. Abhyasa and Vairagya are not two separate practices. Both of them together must happen simultaneously. Abhyasa supports Vairagya. Vairagya leverages Abhyasa. And that's why Patanjali Maharshi in one breath says, Abhyasa Vairagya Abhyam Tannirodha. If they were two separate practices, he would not have put them into one sutra. So we have to practice both Abhyasa and Vairagya, and he will tell us what Vairagya is and how does it accompany Abhyasa, which we will see in our next class.